All right, let's get everybody else up in here before it's officially time to start the show. It's got spinning wheels, one and two. There we go. Welcome in. Welcome in. It is Saturday night, January 22nd, 6:02 Mountain Time. Where most of you guys listen, but not everybody. And it is divisional week. Luke, how you doing? It's time for an episode of Mile High Insiders.
Dude, I'm doing excellent. What a awesome first game of the weekend, man. I mean,
Yeah.
Bengals rolling into Nashville, Tennessee, and just a fight to the end, man. And we were talking about it right before the show started. I'm so pumped for Cincinnati. It's such a fun team to watch. Tennessee, they fought like hell, and I just hope the rest of the games can live up to the hype.
Yeah, man, what a great game. We got reactions coming in here. Augustine Castro giving us a laugh react. Thank you very much. Scott Kennedy with a like, too, there in the background. If you guys are like them, make sure you give us a thumbs up. This is obviously Mile High Insiders, part of the Huddle Up podcast network, Mile High Huddle, of course. And we're going to talk a little bit of Broncos today. Talk a little bit of the information that Mike Klis dropped. I wouldn't call it a bombshell, but the information today that Joe Ellis and John Elway, some people that maybe Broncos country wants to move forward from that era, are still maybe a part of the interviews. But let's say hello to the chat coming in here. Everybody saying hello to us on Saturday night. We got Dylan coming in. Sup, Broncos country. Make sure you guys hit that like button on the way in. We got Thomas making his case here. Gardner Minshew, maybe a little bit of fun. Some mullets and jean shorts. What's going on there with Minshew? Are you in on Minshew?
No,
No.
I'm not in on anyone not named Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson. That's where I'm at, man. I hope that's where the Broncos are going. We're going to talk about that as we get into the show. We got to say hi to our guy, Stuart McPeak. What's going on, buddy? I hope you have an excellent weekend of football. We got another big one coming up here in just a few minutes. So we'll kind of do a watch party with you guys as well as part of the show here with the Niners at Green Bay. And man, that's going to be a crazy matchup too. How are you feeling about that one? I'm nervous. I'm rooting for the Niners, if I'm going to be completely honest. My guy Big O's an intern over there. Obviously, the Kyle Shanahan thing, right? The Niners are kind of the adopted team of Broncos country, along with some of the Rams and their roots. How do you feel about it, man? I'm getting nervous.
My sister and her fiance are big Packers fans, and I'm kind of starting to get a little bit tired of the Broncos, fading into oblivion in that relationship there. So I'm pulling for the 49ers in tonight's game, just for the chaos factor too, right? They're a fun style. Nobody runs the same exact offense, the run schemes like the 49ers do. They're just a lot of fun. Packers are the best team, but also, I mean, it's the bottom line, right? What is most likely to bring Aaron Rodgers to Denver? A Packers
Yeah.
first game loss over. That makes it more probable. So that's what I'm leaning for.
Yeah, man, me too. I want to see Aaron Rodgers get mad at the coaching staff and at everybody again in some snafu, a timeout snafu, Vic Fangio-esque, things like that. But I got to say what's up to my guy, DeAndre Weatherspoon, a huge fan and friend of ours here at MHH. Ruben's in the house. Hunter, agree 1,000%. Of course you do. You're watching MHI, where everyone always agrees with us on anything from Broncos to worldly takes. I want to say hello to a few more folks. We've got Holden Adams in the house saying go Niners and go Bills. Do not forget, we got Josh Allen playing tomorrow. But before we start talking a little Josh Allen as well, how about my guy Logan Wilson, dude, out there, man? I wanted the Broncos to take him so bad. I was at his pro day in Laramie, and man, to see him pretty much win that game at the end for the Bengals was super impressive.
Yeah, the not to go too far down the tracks, but the Wyoming Cowboys have another linebacker to keep your eyes out on this cycle. I think he's going to be down in Mobile, so everybody heading down for the Senior Bowl can see him. Chad Muma, I think he's 6'4", 250. He can move around pretty
He's a
darn
big
well,
one.
so I'm excited to see him. He'll be a day two player, maybe a future Denver Bronco, but keep your eyes out for him.
Yeah, man, it's draft season. We're going to have the best coverage here at Mile High Huddle, so stay tuned for that. Go over to milehighhuddle.com where you can always check out our written content as well. Our guy Mike is in the house saying, "What's up, Broncos country?" Joining the show. Thank you for joining MHI. He's Nick Kendell. I'm Luke Patterson, and away we go. Nick, today, Broncos insider Mike Klis. I don't want to say that he gave groundbreaking news because I think that would be a little over dramatic, but he revealed something regarding the Broncos head coaching search. And that something is that John Elway and Joe Ellis have been involved, but involved from afar. Does that make any sense? I mean, what do you make of Mike Klis's tweet?
Yeah. I guess just let's take it direct quote here. Team CEO Joe Ellis, advisor John Elway observed most of the interviews via Zoom and were available for cues near the end. Agent source meant something that the big guys were in there for the Broncos. To me, I think this is probably best case scenario. These are guys that can answer some questions about the organization and be somebody that Payton maybe doesn't know exactly how things have worked in Denver and Dove Valley. Sans the ownership. So these guys, Elway working in operations and Joe Ellis can answer it. But I won't, I mean, I'm not going to tell anybody in Broncos country that if they get some bad vibes from Joe Ellis and John Elway, crowding into those rooms, I do too a little bit. It concerns me, especially talking about last year. George Payton, felt like, I know John Elway and Drew Lock to give another shot last year. I want George Payton to go in with outside any influence for owing Joe Ellis or John Elway anything. Go out there and make the Denver Broncos better. So it does make me a little bit concerned with those guys being a part of the interviews.
Me too. It feels stale, and it feels like a direction that we were told they were going away from, they being Joe
Yeah.
Ellis and John Elway. Now, Mark Kisla and Mike Klis both dropped an article last week, or this week rather, that John Elway, it feels like the reports that he's interested in working for the team beyond this year with an ownership capacity, a group that remains to be seen. But I don't know where John Elway's head's at. I don't know if he's right when I thought he was stepping away. It's like the Godfather line, right? They pull me back in. And now you see John coming back into the fold. I hated the articles, not because of who wrote them, but because for the first time in my life, it feels like John Elway's desperate. And that's a bizarre thing. I can't believe I'm saying it into a microphone. He's the Duke of Denver. I mean, all of these Super Bowls he's been a part of, the winning ones and most of the losing ones as well. So for me, you really got to wonder, Joe Ellis, John Elway, what's their contract look like? Joe Ellis
Yeah.
talked about wanting to transition the team in the spring, but John Elway, how long is he on the books? I'm having a hard time trying to find his contract. GM's contracts and Broncos brass, it's really hard to find those things. But it makes me wonder where the future for the Broncos go with John Elway.
Yeah, I mean, ownership group, who knows? I mean, he's still the Duke of Denver. Peyton
I'm
Manning for
not
as
sure.
much as
Maybe we have Nick on a quick hold.
Oh, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Oh,
Maybe Luke's gone. Anyway, but I'm here still. Maybe it's a technical difficulty. Scott, let me know in the background if I'm still working here. Yeah, no, the talk here with John Elway, it gives bad vibes. I have Leadhead78 coming in here saying, I'm getting bad vibes from the head coaching process. Pray I'm wrong, and Peyton proves it's not warranted. It's just the whole, the last 6 years have been such a dark cloud in Denver. You see in the Chargers, they didn't make the playoffs this year, but making the Raiders making the playoffs, the Chargers, the franchise quarterback, the Chiefs over and over again. And a lot of Broncos country, deservedly so, is looking towards the horizon, better things in the future for the Broncos, and they don't want to go back. So John Elway, maybe he's getting a little bit of recency bias in the wrong way with what he's done versus what he's done for his entire career. But again, just bad vibes. I'm ready for a new era in Denver, and Joe Ellis and Peyton being involved in the interview process at all. It warrants questioning, just the overall involvement and the direction for the Broncos team.
yeah, and speaking of that, before we get over to Peter real quick, Mike Klis had to clarify some things regarding that tweet. So per Mike Klis, at Mike Klis, to be clear, this is Peyton's deal. Ellis/Elway are Zoom observers. Only made sense to have Ellis available in case candidates had questions about pending ownership transition. Peyton has full authority to pick the next Broncos head coach. So, wondering what's going on with Joe Ellis. When is he going to announce what's going on with the team now that the Kaiser lawsuit has been squashed? I expect him to talk soon, as it's the only thing that makes sense. But come on, man. Head coaching candidates are going to wonder about the ownership. Yeah, they might wonder, but it's not going to keep them from ultimately accepting a position with the Denver Broncos. But before we go any further, Peter Middleton weighing in with a good question. Nick, do you think it matters that the Bengals offensive coordinator just had a Zoom meeting? I wonder if the result today makes George Payton take notice.
I mean, what do you mean by the result today? Because I saw a game that the quarterback went out there and made some plays, but also the offensive line was terrible and made the whole offense kind of disconjointed there. So maybe you give him a second interview more so because he was gypped, quote unquote, with the Zoom meeting. Maybe you want to give him a little bit more of that in-person flavor just to make it make it a little bit more fair for him. But I wasn't super duper impressed with the Bengals offensive scheme today, more so than I was impressed with Joe Burrow making some plays and re-emphasizing the point that we've said here for months. I mean, it's simple, stupid, but like if you don't have a quarterback, good freaking luck. We'll see you again next season as we re-roll the dice because you're not going anywhere.
Yeah, that's a good question, Peter, because as Broncos country watches these playoff games, we start to wonder, right? Could one of these coaches be the Broncos head coach next year? And I really, really liked the play out of Joe Burrow, but it frustrated me that his offensive system didn't seem to allow for quick passes at all. And that attributed to a lot of the sacks. 9 of them, I think, is what we officially tacked it on. And I think they had said on correct me if I'm wrong, on the telecast that only Donovan McNabb had won a playoff game with 8 sacks. And now Joe Burrow just did it with 9. I mean, absolutely incredible. But the quarterback is more important than the head coach, folks. Make no bones about that. I mean, just look at what Joe Burrow did and that whole team. I mean, it's an impressive win. But let's get Garrett in the house real quick and get his thoughts. I'm about to watch the Green Bay Packer game, and it's a hard choice on which team to choose for rooting. Man, I hear you, right? Because at Broncos country, you want to see Aaron Rodgers have some success, right? You want to see that Nathaniel Hackett, that you want to see reasons that he should be your head coach. But you got some love for the Niner gang, bang, bang, Niner game, and Shanahan and on the roots. Man, it's tough. I hear you.
Yeah, it'll be a fun game. I'm a huge fan of Deebo Samuel. I'm a huge fan of Fred Warner. I'm a huge fan of Nick Bosa's game as well. So I'm pulling for the Niners. Should be a fun team. Also, I think it makes it interesting for the dynamic going forward. Like, what happens if the Niners ride Jimmy G all the way to a Super Bowl, and they have Trey Lance sitting there with the former number 3 overall pick who they traded up so much to get? I'm here for the chaos, right? If the Broncos are bad, just give me whatever results in the most chaotic and fun, because that I think is we can all get a little bit from that. Just laughing in the background at everything burning, but at least everybody's burning with us.
Yeah, man, it's going to be interesting to see. I don't want the games to be blowouts like last weekend.
Oh, yeah.
That really, really sucked, because you get so much hope and then you're arranging your day. Remember that Broncos country? Remember the playoffs, what that was like when you used to arrange your day around these games and stuff like that? So we can only hope that these games, especially San Fran and Green Bay, I don't want anybody hurt, obviously. That'd be horrible for the next round. That could be disastrous for the Broncos if they want to get Aaron Rodgers, or knock on wood there. But yeah, man, I don't know that George Payton, I think he was leaning one way when he started the head coaching search rather, but man, I don't know. I don't know where he's at. Eric Bieniemy, I think, was the latest on Friday to interview. Things are sealed up over there in Dove Valley. Have you heard anything about the coaching process and preferences?
I think that the Giants opening up maybe threw a wrench in things. That is the one where I think there was some connections there with Dan Quinn and Payton. And I think if Dan Quinn, if Dan Quinn would accept the Broncos position, I think that's who they would go with. But Dan Quinn is a New Jersey native. There's a lot of NFL respect between the Mara family, just how loyal they are. I mean, given Dave Gettleman year after year, they're not getting it right. I mean, gosh, just the loyalty for those quarterbacks and whatnot. They're going to support you, give you a pretty good contract as well. So I think the Giants opening up might switch things a bit, where all of a sudden Giants position opens up. They're waiting to have their general manager. They might have just hired a general manager actually, just recently, but Dan Quinn is apparently going to get a hard, long look there. And as soon as that opened up, all of a sudden you see all the connections with, oh, maybe Gannon's the guy, which to me sounds like the Broncos PR kind of pivoting to be like, Quinn might not be the favorite here. He might not be coming to Denver anymore. Let's pivot to a guy, put some focus, flame a guy up that maybe is going to be the fallback option, so people aren't at least, freaking out when Quinn spurs the Broncos. Worst case scenario, but that it kind of feels like there was a pivot there with that narrative.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think with Dan Quinn and the New York Giants makes a ton of sense, especially with the Russell Wilson connection to New York as well. Do not forget that. And I hear you, Broncos country. They say, why would Russell Wilson want to go to New York over Denver? I mean, it's the market. It's not necessarily the team. So it's maybe Carmelo Anthony, esque. I'm not going to get into the personal lives because I don't know either of those folks, but that's what it feels like, at least. Let's get Gary's thoughts real quick. Gary asking a good question here, Nick. What do your gut feelings tell you about the impending coach hire? Mine tell me that it's Nathaniel Hackett unless he makes a deep run in the playoffs, which to me tilts the scale towards Quinn. Dan Quinn and the Cowboys and Kellen Moore obviously knocked out last week, but here we go. Nathaniel Hackett, all eyes on you as the Green Bay Packers and Niners have just started. What do you make on Gary's question about Nathaniel Hackett, and what do your gut feelings tell you right now, Nick?
My gut feelings still tell me Quinn is the guy, but I do think that Hackett or Gannon have a very real possibility as well. I thought it was interesting also. Mike Klis fired back at somebody today saying those are the 10 candidates they've interviewed so far, making it sound like the second interviews could have maybe a different candidate as well that could come into the fold for that second interview, somebody maybe even circumventing that first round. So it will be interesting to see what happens there. My gut still tells me Quinn. There's just been too much smoke and fire there. The connections make sense. It is a relationship league, so people you've worked with in the past, those guys try to buddy up. It's same with coaching staffs. It's same with general manager or front office staff as well. So that one, it just makes a lot of sense for it to be Quinn. But again, the Giant stuff, I feel like there's a little bit of smoke there. So we'll see how that plays out. And we got Gary Leeds Palmer. Hey, Nick and Luke. Hello to you, Gary. Hope you're doing well. Happy Saturday.
GLP, what's up, buddy? Good to see you. Speaking of GLP, Gary Leeds Palmer, all of our friends and our family at Mile High Huddle. These are some of our top super chat superstars. That's a tongue twister. Let's go down the top 10. Really appreciate you guys. We got the DWI guys rocking at number 1, Christopher Gaspari, Michaela Parker, Robbie Nuns, Mark from Georgia, DW96734. And our gal, Pabby, is back. Pabby, welcome back. We've missed you. Thoughts and prayers with your family. We've got our friend Christy. She's always in the house showing us love. Sam BBM, Vincent Palowski, Tanner Hulse, EJ, Discount Audio and Wheels. Man, look at all the love we're getting. Our guy Naj. There's our guy Naj, Paul 80026, Casey Nickel, Corey H, Cody W, John Clay, Chris Hernandez, one of my guys, and 727 Mill. All you guys are rocking as our top super chat superstars. Thank you so much for keeping the lights on, especially with draft season. For a lot of other publications, they check out as soon as the year is over. Not us. We check in. Draft season, we've got a nut list of guys that just are addicted to the NFL draft, Nick. It's what we do. You start all the way in the fall. I start right now. But man, Mile High Huddle is the place to be because of the people.
Hell, man, I'm already ready. I got some names written down for 2023. Let's go, man. The obvious talent is obvious, man. When they flash, I'm like, oh, get me
Arch
out there.
Manning, I'm in.
I love it, man. Wisconsin's got a running back who just turned 18 years old, and I swear to God, if I was his father, I'd be like, "You're sitting out the next 2 seasons. You're a bleeping running back. There's no way you should be playing. He's too good already." So it'll be fun to see what happens here the next few seasons. Hopefully, the Broncos can get it on the right track here. Obviously, we got the game coming down the track. You've been taking my temperature here on the coaching search. I want to get your temperature on the coaching search right now. Are there any? Everybody's been talking Gannon. Everybody's been talking Quinn, Hackett, rightfully so. The big 3 guys right now. I guess maybe not Gannon. Maybe I'm going to have you sell me on Gannon. Is there somebody besides those 3 that you think is maybe worth that second tier interview has made you pause and being like, maybe this is the guy to lead the ship for the Broncos going forward?
I actually feel a lot better about Nathaniel Hackett than I did initially. And I had a lot of that fan optimism. Like, I just want to get Aaron Rodgers at any cost, but trying to do some research on Hackett and where he comes from and who he is, it's really tough when he's never been connected to the Broncos. So many times, like you said, you see these coaches kind of come and go, and now you're hearing Ed Donatel might go to Seattle as a defensive coordinator. But for me right now, I'd like to see Nathaniel Hackett get a shot, and maybe Luke Getsy. Not only does he have a brilliant name, but it's just one of those things where I'd be curious to see how he matures, Luke Getsy, as a play caller. If things don't work out with Nathaniel Hackett, he's put in his time. He's definitely climbed the ranks, and Aaron Rodgers likes this kid, and I think there's something for that too. Aaron Rodgers is a different cat, but he's an elite quarterback, and he's in the conversation for MVP. So when the MVP is tying himself closely to young offensive minds, and he's not a brainiac, he's not a O'Connell, he's not a Coach McVay type coach, but I'm curious for sure about Nathaniel Hackett and Luke Getsy.
Yeah, for me, I think I would put my my fist down on the table, bang the table for Kevin O'Connell out of the other guys, just because of how close he's been tied to Sean McVay. And I am dying for a pass scheme where you can isolate a matchup and make your first read be the guy that's open. For the Broncos, just for years, it's been like, okay, we have multiple reads based on, what the defense is doing, where you should go with the football. But a lot of times it's pretty hard on the quarterback. And also that's not always isolating your Cortland Sutton, your Jerry Jeudy's in the best matchups. So I want somebody who can isolate a player in space, a playmaker in space, and take advantage of that and make it easy for the quarterback position. I mean, we saw it with Jared Goff. I know that they do a good job with the play action game as well, which is about pushing the ball down the field. You don't make explosive plays unless you're trying to make explosive plays. And I think that the Rams do an excellent job with that, as good as anybody, especially in the pass game. So give me O'Connell. I think he's the one that maybe you don't have the same institutional leadership, which is what Payton is looking for. I mean, he's preaching about that a lot, but I just want somebody who can come in and make the job easy for the quarterback. Let's create some explosive plays. And by doing that, I think you do the best, especially with the weapons they have already on this team, you do the best job of potentially creating a nest or a great opportunity and environment for a quarterback to come up and capitalize for what the Broncos have already here in Denver.
I'm curious about O'Connell too, because something's got to change and it can't just be the same old defense. And I am souring on Quinn just a little. And it's not because of last week, because I thought Kellen Moore actually did more damage than Dan Quinn. At a certain point, your offense has just got to make smart calls. You got to compete, and you've just got to execute. And so I felt like the Cowboys defense was left out there to hang a little bit, but the Cowboys lost. Boo-hoo, right? It's one of those things with Dan Quinn where it's just schematically for me, the 4-3, right? That's what the Broncos would be going for. We're talking right now about coaches, and we want coaches to do and fit their game plans with what they have and their talents with their players. Well, I'm just not sold that this defense is ready to be converted overnight into a 4-3. So there was one comment out there that said Nathaniel Hackett called plays for Jacksonville. That is absolutely 100% correct. I called it with Blake Bortles, former Bronco quarterback, right? The mature one of them all, if you guys remember that story. But I think to his point, while that was not a sexy offense with Nathaniel Hackett and the Jacksonville Jaguars, he ran the hell out of the ball. He didn't ask Blake Bortles to do things that were out of his norm, and that's what made that team work.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. You know who's making it work today for us? Tabitha coming in here, giving us the stars. Thank you so much for supporting us. All the contributions here. We also got Jacob coming in. Hello, and thank you to Jacob Foster. Thanks so much. All of our contributors. Maybe you're working your way up on our list of monthly, all the top scoreboard of our monthly contributors. So thank you guys so much, getting a chance to support us, keep the lights on for the offseason. I know it's kind of a slow, and I see that we have a touchdown for the Packers. AJ Dillon knocking it in there for Boston College running back. Very explosive, but an absolute unit. Packers take the early lead versus the San Francisco 49ers.
There you go, Nathaniel Hackett, right? Calling some running plays.
Right
committing to the run. How would you like that with Javonte Williams? But, Nick, do you see Melvin Gordon going off on Twitter? I had to bring this up, man. He's trying to get his respect out there, and don't let the door hit you on the way out. I appreciate the fact that you played well this year. I do, but I do not want Melvin Gordon back this year. This next season, I think his time has come, and I think he'll get a good payday from another team in the league.
Yeah, no, he'll get it. He'll definitely, somebody will give him some cash. Maybe it'll be Denver. I've heard it does sound like he might take a slight hometown discount to come here, especially if the Broncos upgrade the quarterback position. But God, so many hurdles to cross until we get there. So we'll see what happens. We got Mr. Boggins coming in here with his list of candidates here. He says, I'm guessing this is head coach, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, Quinn, McDaniel, Durd. Durd, who's Durd? That name is not ringing a bell for me. Is that one? You got to let us know who that is off the top of your head. That one's not making much sense to me.
Yeah, I'm trying to. Is it Aiden Durd, former football player of the Atlanta Falcons? Looks like he was a linebacker. He's currently the defensive line coach of the Dallas Cowboys. So Boggins is going deep on that one, and I like where his head is at, because it's a who business. It's these guys have to trust each other. So that would be Dan Quinn bringing his coaching corps, and the D line for Dallas. Man, that's not their weak point, not at all. And that's interesting. Again, we don't know that the coaching search is over. So we might hear some other names. But here's the tweet. Thanks for pulling it up, Scott, that Melvin Gordon put out there earlier this week. And this is at Melvin Gordon 25. Bro, I get more shade than anyone in the league, hands down. I know NFL teams know what's up, but come on, man, in reference to top free agent running backs with Cordell Patterson ranked at number 1. Go to milehighhuddle.com. I think Kenneth Booker's working on something there, or it already pubbed. Leonard Fournette at number 2, James Conner number 3, Chase Edmonds number 4, and Sony Michel number 5 as the top free agent running backs. What do you think of that tweet, Nick? Do you think Melvin Gordon was slighted out of the top 5?
I think he was slided out of the top 5. I think that after number 1, I mean, honestly, you know how I am. I really like the tiers personally. I think that's the best way to do it. I think you could put Melvin Gordon up with any of these guys. Fournette has going to be on his 3rd contract as well. He's been really good, but maybe a little bit limited. Also on a much better offense overall. Tom Brady led there with the Buccaneers. James Conner and Chase Edmonds been good this season. I think honestly they didn't lean on the running backs enough there in Arizona. And then Sony Michel, he's been meh. I think Connors, Edmonds, and Michel are probably slightly younger than Melvin Gordon, but I put Melvin Gordon right up there with any of these guys. I think that he's right to feel slighted. Out of this list, I wouldn't, but every single one of these guys has a claim to the top 5, I would say.
Has Melvin Gordon ever not felt slighted? I mean, first it was Philip Lindsay, now it's, and then it was Broncos country doesn't like me. And now it's, man, it's always whining with that guy. I'm not sure. I see a comment in here. I'm trying to find it. It's from Klis, our friend. Appreciate you weighing in on MHI, saying maybe Mike Boone can replicate his 4 carries for 35 yards season again. Mike Boone obviously being out for some time. Melvin Gordon played well. He really did, but the fumbling issues at key moments is something that really, really bothers me, but it's not going to refrain from him getting a deal. We both agree that money is coming for Melvin, so no need to feel bad for Flash Gordon. Dave Glassman, our friend, weighing in. I'll never be the top donator until I hit the lottery, but I appreciate you guys and will continue to do all that I can. Go Von Miller and the Rams, not worried about the picks, rooting for the Vonster. Dave, we are rooting for you. Appreciate your support so much. It's not about how much you can give. It's about the time that you spend with us, our interactions. Life is short. We can't just, in the current circumstances, keep to ourselves. We need to branch out. We need to check on one another. We need to be friends. We need to engage. And Dave, really appreciate you being a friend of the show.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dave. If you keep the lights on for us, every little bit helps, obviously, but that's not what it's about. It's about hanging out in here, talking ball, having fun with the Broncos, even when the team is letting us down. Still can come in here and vent and have a catharsis together. Maybe an awakening as well. We got this question coming in here for Leroy Williams. I wanted to get to this one. Maybe Scott could correct me on some of these things later on, but Cordell Patterson was a receiver. Guess he's converted to a running back? Yes, he has. I know you guys watching the 49ers right now, you've probably seen a little bit of Deebo Samuel action, running in the backfield, jet sweeps, motioning into the backfield. Kind of Cordell Patterson as well. Obviously, Deebo Samuel, much better receiver than Cordell Patterson ever materialized into. But Patterson's a really good player. If the Broncos bring in Mike McDaniel, I am going to be banging the table to sign Cordell Patterson because he would be so fun with that offensive scheme that the 49ers like to run. And I think McDaniel would do a lot of creative things to get Patterson the ball. I mean, Patterson is a freak athlete still. I know he's a little older, but because he played wide receiver, it's not the same level of hits that a lot of these running backs his age have accumulated. And he's just, so dynamic. He plays H-back, plays slot, plays running back, really a positionless type of player.
Wasn't he with Chicago initially?
Initially, he was drafted by the Minnesota Vikings. I think maybe he was with the Chicago for a little bit.
I see Scott kind of nodding his head. Looks like he bounced around.
He's with the Patriots too. The Patriots would motion him in the backfield and get him a couple carries a game where it's like, oh my gosh, like he looks like an absolute unit. Why don't they do that more often? And the Falcons really leaned into it this season. Cordell Patterson, man, he was one of my best fantasy players this year, so I really appreciated him from the running back position.
Great name. Absolutely love it. Get him. Yeah. Sign him right now. Him and Luke Getsy, and I'm in. We're ready. We're ready.
More
to
playmakers.
Go. Yeah, we're ready to go. But guys, this is Nick Kendell, Luke Patterson, Scott on the ones and twos, MHI on Saturday night, part of Mile High Huddle. Let's see here. Leroy, that was a great question because we've got free agents. Don't forget that. All right. Like, I know our eyes are on the NFL draft, but George Payton has a whole team of pro scouts that are currently still evaluating talent with players on other teams, not named Aaron Rodgers in this current postseason run. So let us know who some of your favorite players are in this game. San Francisco and Green Bay. Obviously, Devontae Adams sticks out there. But, man, George Kittle, Jimmy G, can you get my guy the ball? George Kittle, don't we all love watching football when George Kittle gets the ball? I mean, don't get me wrong, Nick. I get so pumped when I see George Kittle put a linebacker on their ass or just throw an awesome block. But I'm ready to see some points for George.
Yeah, I love George Kittle. His dad is a lawyer up in Cedar Rapids, which is not far from where I grew up. So love George Kittle. Never materialized at Iowa because of the injuries, but that's why you don't quit on talent. It's very frustrating that he went one pick after the Broncos spent a 5th-round pick on a tight end. But what is that? Sliding Doors? Was that the show in the 90s, the movie in the 90s about, things can change or things in history can change. So who knows? But I love George Kittle. It'd be a lot of fun to see him go on in the playoffs and keep representing tight end U, the University of Iowa.
Yeah, man, it's Iowa. You guys put out so many tight ends and some decent linebackers. I absolutely love it. Mark weighing in. Well, guys, I'm going to sign off and watch you guys tomorrow in the rerun. My wife is wanting me to watch her Packers with her. Hag in Broncos country. I don't know if I should have said that last line, but we appreciate you watching, guys. You guys can always get these podcasts at your convenience, wherever you download podcasts, whether iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, Facebook. We have got your back. This is MHI with Nick Kendell and Luke Patterson. You can find Nick on Twitter at Nick Kendell MHH. Yours truly at Luke Patterson LP. And I want to get to this comment real quick from Rohit. Hi, Denver Broncos country. I'm a huge fan of the show. I would like to know if it's either Hackett or Quinn. Who do you see as their coordinators? That's really interesting, right? If it's Hackett, I think you see Luke Getsy immediately as a promotion for offensive coordinator. Remember, guys, you're not going to see lateral transfers. If someone's an offensive coordinator at another place, they're not going to come here to be an offensive coordinator. That's almost a certainty, right? With the rules and everything else like that. But defensive coordinator, Nick, we're not really talking a lot about that. That's the mystery one for me. Obviously, Gerard Mayo, that would be ideal, but everyone says the Houston Texans, aka Patriots South, might grab him up. Who do you like for a DC for Dan Quinn or a Nathaniel Hackett?
God, this is going to be such a cop-out. Can we keep Ed Donatel? I really like the Vic Fangio scheme. I know that's not going to happen, but he's still here. And I think we're going to see it with tomorrow night with the Bills versus the Chiefs. The Bills are going to live in too high till the cows come home, and they're not going to blitz Patrick Mahomes. They're going to rush 4 with the length they have on the edge and keep their 2 safeties deep. And we have data. That's what Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs and the Chargers struggle against. So you want to come in here and you want to play a cover 3 heavy scheme, which the data says you do not do against Patrick Mahomes. Hell no. So I mean, how's Donatel would do without Vic Fangio? Who knows? I get a lot of people, we want a more aggressive style defense. I get it. In an ideal world, you can play cover 0, rush and cover on the outside and get a sack or an interception every time, right? But this isn't Madden. And you're going up against some elite weapons and quarterbacks. I think it's more important to not give up explosive pass plays and touchdowns to those guys. So maybe Ed Donatel. I don't know. It would be interesting. I'm kind of waiting to see how these guys come in. I remember you talked about the Dan Quinn discussion earlier about the 4-3-3-4. Can we just as a society move on? Like we live in a 4-2-5 nickel or sub package world these days, where I think 70% of the plays come with 5 defensive backs on the field. I think we need to start discussing, the coverages that these teams lean into, whether it be the cover 1, cover 2 man, cover 3, match quarters, etc., and the defensive line techniques that we have. Whether it be 2 gapping, 1 gapping, gap and a half, if we really want to get into the nitty gritty with Vic Fangio's defense and whatnot. But the 4-3-3-4, I think it's a little bit dated as far as the understanding of the game. Sorry, Klis. I love you, Klis. But sorry, Klis.
Yeah, I'd push back on that a little bit. I think the style. Okay. You're right with it's a passing league, Nick. I mean, unless you're facing a Derrick Henry, and even today, you saw it was a passing game. You've got to have those DBs, and the Broncos have some decent DBs right now. They can always improve, and they must get better. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, that's interesting. Ed Donatel. I'm curious why people would say, no, I'm not into that, looking for something more aggressive, because I don't know what an Ed Donatel defense looks like. Vic Fangio wouldn't let him do anything. So I would tell you, I'd be really upset if we saw Ed Donatel go to Seattle with Wagner and turn Adams back into the player that we thought he was going to be. Man, that would be really, really tough. But I think George Payton wants a new start. And Peter asking another good question. Surprise cut. Who is it this year? Surprise, though, please. Man, surprise cut. We're predicting the future. It's got to be a big one. It can't be like a punt returner or.
I'd have one that's maybe not that big, but it could save the Broncos about $3 million in cap space. Mike Purcell, you might have a defense changing here. He was kind of not really a big difference maker for the Broncos this season. And if you're not going to be playing much zero technique snaps with the defensive change coming forward, you can save that money and maybe invest in a younger, more versatile defensive lineman type.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to go with Alexander Johnson. I think you've got to.
He can't be cut. He's a free agent.
Is he a free agent? How about Josie Jewell? Is he on the 1 year?
Josie's a free agent. Kenny Young's a free agent. Alexander Johnson's a free agent. All the linebackers.
Okay, so you can't cut them. Oh man, here we go. That is tough. Surprise cut. I'll do something absolutely crazy just for the sake of doing it and to piss Broncos country off. What about Brandon McManus? What if we cut him? What if George just wants to get rid of all the Super Bowl 50 type stuff, start fresh? He's the last player on the team. I know he's beloved in the locker room, but he's a kicker. He's an expensive kicker. He's always looking for a new deal. So surprise cut. Let's just go for Brandon McManus for the hell of it, even though I don't think he's ultimately going anywhere.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's one that will probably happen. The only one, I mean, this is a tough one because the Broncos are so good with their contracts for the most part. They don't really have a lot of vets that are on deals that are horrible that they can move on. I mean, if let's say you could save 100% of Shelby Harris's contract, maybe we're having that conversation, but you're going to have negative dead. You'd actually lose money moving on from Shelby Harris rather than saving money when cutting him. So Mike Purcell is the only one that is immediately obvious for me. Maybe you're talking about Brandon McManus. Maybe you're talking about Sam Martin as well. Both Brandon McMisses. I mean, gosh, shout out to the McPherson talking about the mix.
I know
the Scottish kickers there.
That's what's got me going right now. Now, I'm like, for the first time in my life, I'm thinking about kickers in the NFL draft just because of the Cincinnati Bengals and Holden Adams weighing in. Cameron Dicker, the kicker from Texas, Luke. Sure. I'm being facetious, obviously, but no, Shelby Harris. I think that's another interesting name, but the finances have to match the cut. You're exactly right. George Payton wants to keep this team in good shape. Our friend Jay Roper's active in the chat saying he wants Marquette King back, man. Oh boy, Marquette. No, Marquette will not be coming back to the Denver Broncos, but Jay, I'm with you. At least it was entertaining summer with Marquette King here in Denver.
Here's a couple more names that maybe would be surprises as well. This is more of a camp cut rather than ones that are salary cap, but later on, maybe McTelvin Agim. He's been inactive for 2 seasons in a row. We haven't seen him. Former 3rd-round pick. Maybe you have somebody on the back end of that defensive line or a couple of draft picks that are refortifying the defensive line where you're moving on from McTelvin Agim. And then everybody's preseason darling who's sunset so quickly. Justin Cernod, not bringing much to special teams. 5th-round pick. I know you still have 2 years of control left, but like, where is he even playing given his limitations? Doesn't look very good in starting. Not really athletic out there for special teams. Maybe somebody you're moving on from. I know we're talking about a 5th-round pick here, but still, that's one that's 2 years removed from the draft.
Yeah, no, and he was a guy that I was super high on, and it's been a little disappointing, if I'm going to be honest. He came on a little bit towards the end of the year. I liked his effort, and I liked his play, but let's talk about maybe a surprise bench now that my brain is going on, man, what surprises could I see? Lloyd Cushenberry, you need to improve, bud. I mean, Broncos country loves you. We love the story, the LSU. He's smart. He's a hard worker. He's humble. He never throws anybody under the bus. He's accountable. I absolutely love Lloyd Cushenberry, but the performance has just been meh. He has improved. I would say it was an improved year, but not by a ton. And that's something that's been a little disappointing for me. Now, the Graham Glasgow restructured deal for a lot of people sent off red flags with Dalton Reisner. And Dalton Reisner hasn't played as good as his rookie season. So I'm not willing to go with the Broncos giving up on Reisner. I just think they realized it was way too expensive to be keeping Graham Glasgow here for that price. So I respect the restructured deal, but it makes me curious because Graham Glasgow can play center as well. Maybe they're looking at a Graham Glasgow midseason change and you get Natani Moody in there or Quinn Miners. But that's a big jump, Broncos country. Quinn Miners going to center. All right. We're just starting to settle him in and get him competent with guard. I do not want to move Quinn Miners.
Yeah, that would be I guess we'll see how it works in camp, whatnot. It's new year. Maybe he's one that's taken up a lot on his plate. That he's flourishing with those checks, but we'll see. Maybe Cushenberry, it still has 2 years of control. He's went from a bottom 3 center to like a bottom 10 center this year, so it's improvement. And he's also extremely cheap. You don't have to have all pros on every single line spot as long as you're not getting killed out there. And I think Cushenberry was at least okay. You are looking to improve him, but if you trot him back out there next year, you're not going to be looking like the Bengals offensive line did today. So not the worst out there. It will be interesting to see. I think you talk about Reisner. Reisner's one where you're not cutting him. He's still cheap. He's still competent, but you need to start planning for the future without Reisner today because he's going to be in the last year of his deal. And Reisner's fine on his rookie contract, but I don't know if he's done enough out there for me to give him what'll probably be a top 15 interior offensive line contract when he hits top 20. You don't think people are desperate. He's like, oh, he's young. He's a former decently high pick. He'll probably get a decent contract. It's just kind of how the things roll over, right? It won't be one off season after it. He'll drop a bit, but he'll probably end up a top 15, 20 paid guy, and guards get paid more than centers too. So I could see it.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be that team. I don't want to be the team right now.
I hear you. And Nick, I love Dalton just like you do. Everybody in Broncos country does. He's been very good to me in all my dealings in his camp as well. So no disrespect, but he would be the first to tell you that he has to improve, and he has done that. And I appreciate the accountability with him. But if we are being completely honest, Dalton Reisner is not a name that covets elite status as a guard in the NFL. If you go to other teams and you talk to their scouts, their coaches, just another guy kind of. So maybe the Broncos feel they have Dalton by the short hairs, saying you are the local kid. We do expect you to take the hometown discount a little bit. Don't you want to stay, Dalton, and be part of the solution? You were part of the problem, right? For so long. That's what people have said. The O-line. People are still saying the O-line, and that argument can be had, Nick. I mean, it's not awful. It's not great. And it's kind of average, somewhere in between, but man, we've got some improvements to make. But I don't think it's Mike Munchak. I've heard that argument on our publication, the radio, because it's a fair question. Well, Mike Munchak, dude, outside of Garrett Bowles, what the hell? It's a fair question, but I wonder about Mike Munchak's future with the Broncos. Nick, have you heard anything about George Payton possibly wanting to retain him? Does Mike Munchak even want to coach anymore? I mean, where do you think Mike Munchak is at with the Denver Broncos?
I think Mike Munchak might even be a feather in the cap for whatever offense or whatever coaching staff comes in here, given his track record and respect around the league with multiple coaches, multiple iterations, offensive line coach, head coach, et cetera, et cetera. So I think he would stick around. There has been some murmurs about Bill Kohler maybe being one that would retire, who's been a defensive line coach for the Broncos for a while, getting up there. But I think that Munchak is going to stick around. If you bring in an offensive guy, and that's maybe that's a positive for bringing in Dan Quinn too, depending on what you think of Mike Munchak or Gannon as well. But if you bring in an offensive guy, you might see a switch there because that offensive guy might have a specific scheme or relationship with an offensive line coach that he wants to bring in and help further implement his scheme, key concepts, development, et cetera, et cetera. But I mean, you have Munchak in house. He's one of the best. He has been one of the best. Yeah. Maybe not the best in the league, but still very, very good. Top 5. And that's a feather in the cap if you have that guy here.
You know what I worry about is a team eventually poaching Coop, right? A longtime
Yeah.
assistant, Chris Cooper, was with the Dolphins, been here with the Broncos for a few seasons, and I mean, ultimately made his bones as one of the toughest and smartest linemen in the Bronco room. He's very well respected, and I'd hate to see like another team claim Cooper and make him the official offensive line coach, because you got to know that's what he's aiming for. I do know that he loves living here in Denver with his family, but he's got goals as well. And being an assistant offensive line coach, I don't think is the final step for Chris Cooper. Guys, this is MHI. He's Nick. I'm Luke. Scott on the ones and twos. And I had to pull this up real quick because it's an interesting. Always makes me remember when you start talking about Broncos failed picks. Maurice weighing in with a good question. Who was the most garbage first rounder? Florida's Jarvis Moss or Paxton Lynch? Man, Jarvis Moss is not a name I have heard in a very long time. Nick, do you remember the defensive end that just fizzled out here in Denver?
I do remember him. There was a defensive lineman though who the Broncos drafted like maybe never even played a snap for them. And when they drafted him, the Broncos bought him in, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, how tall are you?" They actually had the measurements wrong. He was much smaller than they thought. Obviously, the draft has changed a lot. It's a much bigger business here. But they
Wow.
drafted a guy who they thought he was going to be like 6'3", and they stood up next to him, and he was like 6'1", and it's like, "Oh my gosh, we drafted the wrong guy." Ted Gregory, that's the name. Sticks out
Ted
to me for
Gregory, Clee's in there
Yep,
on
coming
that
in.
one. Clee, nice.
Ted
Ted
Gregory. Yep, they stood up
Gregory.
next to him. And it's like, you're not this height you said you were. Too bad the draft's already happened, buddy. Sorry.
Yeah, to answer that question, it's got to be Paxton Lynch because it's quarterback, right? It's quarterback league. I know everybody's got their sights set on quarterback and what the Broncos are going to do, and they're going to need to go ahead and figure out what direction they're going to move in. I mean, Teddy Bridgewater, Drew Lock, we don't know what's going on there. Our good friend Kathy Lund is weighing in saying she thinks they traded up to get Moss. I think you're right, and those were towards the latter ends of the Mike Shanahan coaching tenure here, where I think Mike at times reached a little bit. And another bust I remember, but I don't even think he was drafted, or he was a 7th rounder. Was Maurice Claret drafted?
He was. I think he was a 3rd-round pick. I think he was
Was
a
he a 3rd
compensatory
rounder?
3rd-round
Okay,
pick.
because I knew it
Yep.
was. Yeah, I knew. Okay, compensatory. That makes sense. Because I remember being excited. Maurice Claret was a Bronco, and they gave him a shot, but it busted out early too. And
Yeah.
because at the time, though, Nick, I mean, Mike Shanahan was producing running backs with anybody, from Tatum Bell selling cell phones up at Colorado Mills Mall, and I mean, anybody under the sun would rush for 1,000 yards under a Mike Shanahan offense, which is one of the reasons people are still curious about O'Connell, about some of these guys that are being connected with McVay and Shanahan and Kubiak and those sort of things. And it makes Broncos country very excited because it's familiar and it's worked in the past.
Yeah. I mean, we've all seen the picture of all the head coaches from that dynasty, or I get the 3-13 Washington football team that have gone on to do great things, and LaFleur and Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay. So that offense, there is some staying power there as it being the flavor, and they do such a good job of just making it simple on the quarterback, making the run concepts not far from simple, but like, hey, if you have less guys in the box, we're going to run it to where there's less guys. I mean, football sometimes is pretty simple. It's getting into those situations and forcing defenses into spots where they're uncomfortable, and you can take advantage of those numbers, which they do a phenomenal job at. But man, I would just give me some of that magic. I was just thinking the other day, like, man, if we could go back, time machine, there's obviously much better usage for the time machine, but 2018, not hiring Kyle Shanahan, not drafting Josh Allen, letting Shaq Barrett walk. Like, gosh, how different things would be. We wouldn't have a show right now because the Broncos would be playing.
Yeah, man. And you know, Kyle definitely threw down in the interview process. The Broncos were very impressed with Kyle Shanahan, but Peter Middleton again weighing in with some love and some support. How many draft picks will we sign after a possible quarterback trade? Currently, there's 11.
I mean, who knows? The Broncos like the wheel and deal. We saw George Payton moving up and down the draft board. They are going to probably move on from some for a quarterback. Sounds like that's plan A. I wouldn't expect the Broncos to have all these picks. It would be great of them to use some of those picks and trade back and give themselves a foot up for 2023. I always like to be a team that has excess draft capital, because you put yourself in a situation, not only playing for the future, but it can be playing for the now too. I mean, I think it was Calais Campbell came over to the Ravens from Jacksonville for a 5th round pick. The Eagles brought in Bennett, who was obviously with the Seahawks there for a while, then the Patriots, and they brought him in, and he was a big part of that Super Bowl pass rush as well. I think they gave up like a 4th round pick for him. Having those extra picks gives you a lot of flexibility where you can trade for vets or be aggressive in the quarterback market, or et cetera, without really mortgaging your future.
I think that's fair. Yeah, George Payton, that I think that matches probably some of his philosophy. I think George Payton is a planner. He likes to think 5 steps ahead instead of just 2. And I'm curious to see what he does. I don't think, obviously, the Broncos are going to use 11 draft picks. Not the direction George Payton's going to go. Kevin weighing in saying, you guys probably already answered this, but why do you think Brian Flores wasn't considered in the Broncos' top 5 head coaching jobs? For me, that's easy. I was wondering, and I wanted Brian Flores here at least to get an interview. But this tells me that George Payton is not interested in the New England Patriots style or philosophy of doing things. I think he's leaning a little bit more towards things that he's ran in Minnesota, things that he's familiar with in Miami. I just don't see it with the Patriots tree and the Broncos ever again.
Yeah, my understanding is that George Payton and Miami Dolphins general manager Chris Peterson are as close as can be. Like, that might actually be his best friend in the world, and they talk a lot. I mean, there's a lot of talk last year. The Broncos may be trading up to 6 overall if a quarterback falls that they like there because of the relationship between Payton and Peterson. And obviously, there was a Peterson versus Brian Flores feud, power dynamic struggle there in Miami, that the ownership ends up leaning towards Peterson instead of Flores. So I don't think that there is interest there because of the relationship between Payton and Peterson. Peterson's probably saying to Payton, like, listen, this guy, I mean, he's a good coach, but like, tough work environment, really hard to work with in general, his way or the highway, not collaborative, et cetera. I'm just spitballing here. I don't have any idea for sure, but I'd imagine that's a possibility there. And as soon as that came out, I remembered the Peterson Payton connection. I was like, okay, well, that's probably not happening, even though I would really like to have Flores because I think he runs a great defense. And
Me too.
I don't mind the drill sergeant head coach as long as they are consistent with it. And it can grow tiring, but if you win, you can ride it as long as you can.
Well, I was only around him for a week last year in Mobile for the Senior Bowl, but he did not run practice like a drill sergeant. That was more like Matt Rule. So, and I was not impressed with Matt Rule at all. Brian Flores was joking with players. He was having fun with them. He was delegating responsibilities to his coaches. I mean, practice was organized. It was efficient. So I don't think the mystique of the Bill Belichick thing is always there. There are the exceptions, right? With Mike Vrabel, you look at Brian Flores, but you do wonder, you don't want another Josh McDaniels type thing. But it's going to be interesting to see. For me, he was at least worth an interview, but George Payton might have known something about the Houston Texans that he didn't, that we don't. And Flores has been connected with Watson for a long time as well. So maybe this is just a deal that has been in the back of everybody's head that we will wait to see if it ultimately works out with Flores in Houston.
Yeah, we'll see. It will be interesting to see how it all plays out, man. I honestly, because of the information that we have and like not knowing these guys personally, I'm definitely a wait and see. I've seen a lot of people in Broncos country riding the highs and low, like, oh my God, if they hire Quinn, I don't know what I'm going to do. If they hire Gannon, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm willing to give these guys the benefit of the doubt. I'm skeptical too. I'm not buying in either. Just, kind of riding the wave here in the middle and letting it play out, which is maybe not always the most fun for clicks and interactions, but we'll let it play out and just try to be as what's the word I'm looking for? Not biased.
Fair.
There's a word. Fair. Just be
fair. Just be fair. And Maurice, I want to push back. I love all of your interaction and being able to debate each other is one of my favorite things about our shows on Mile High Huddle. But Maurice weighing in saying it's better to be feared than loved. Some coaches, sure, I guess the only coach I could think of that's feared in the NFL is really Bill Belichick. His buddy Nick Saban in college, I guess that works. But you look at other coaches right now, and Sean McVay, his players are in love with him. I mean, it's like serious bromance with that guy, and it's not like he's just all rainbows and sugar with these guys. I mean, he gets after them. He chews them out. Kyle Shanahan, again, you see his players love him. These are guys that take accountability for when they're wrong. And I think at times there's that generational gap, but then there's a Pete Carroll who's not a spring chicken either. But he would rather, I think, be loved than feared. So I'd push back against that because you saw the damage that Josh McDaniels did with, I just want to scare the hell out of everybody, yell, scream, and berate them if we lose. And that's what's going to win us games. That doesn't work if you're unproven in the NFL. And the only way that that could possibly work is if you've got a championship pedigree as a head coach. Last time I checked, none of them do. So they better be able to show some tough love at times, but ultimately give it up for your guys.
I think it's much more important in listening to interviews with former head coaches and whatnot. It's the trust factor. I think that's the biggest thing. You don't have to love the coaches. You don't have to fear them or anything, but you have to trust them that they're going to put you in a position to do your job and succeed, not leave you out to dry, and own the mistakes and give credit where it's due. You know, it's all those things that you see from a good manager. But I love Kathy's quote here. I want them to be afraid of how much they love me. Michael Scott. Beautiful. Love it. Thank you so much, Kathy. I think that's going to do enough to, I want to leave it on that quote. So get everybody to the game. I know George Kittle just had a big drop and the Packers have the ball again, end of the first quarter. So we're going to get you out there to Lambeau, to watch the rest of this game. Luke, you ever been to Lambeau?
Never. It's on the bucket list, man.
Pretty cool.
I'm upset, man. Some of my buddies are there at that game right now, and yeah, that's on the bucket list. I would love to take my girls to it. Maybe my dad. Family trip. Let's bring the whole damn family. Let's sell the house and get tickets to Lambeau. I hear it's in a weird part, right? In the city of where they're at. I mean, it's just right in the suburbs and stuff like that. It's got all the history, but I want to feel that energy in Lambeau.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great time. You know, it's been a great time tonight, guys, too. Make sure you're following us. Hit the thumbs up on the way up as we wrap up the show. This is Mile High Insiders. You guys can follow Luke and I on Twitter. Luke is at Luke Patterson LP, and I'm at Nick Kendell MHH. Also follow us at MHI_pod, as well as at Mile High Huddle. If you guys like the gear, I'm wearing the hat right now with the sweet Colorado flag logo. Luke's got the hoodie on. Go to huddleuppod.com to get your swag on. Also, if you like the gear, but you think, yeah, maybe I don't want to pay for the gear right now. Also, Scott's rocking the beanie as well in the background. The coffee mug's in the dishwasher right now. But if you guys like the gear, it's like, I don't know if I want to spend that right now. It could come at the end of the month. If you go to Apple Podcasts, leave us a 5-star review and comment. You got a chance to win some of the gear. So make sure you do that if you like the gear and you don't feel like dropping that dollar right now. Also, make sure you're following us at facebook.com/Mile High Huddle and facebook.com/Mile High Huddle. And if you folks subscribe, like, and share over to us on YouTube, Mile High Huddle shows every single day of the week and some of the mornings as well. So it's a lot of fun.
At the horn, our guy, Base Gase coming in here. Do you think the New York Giants will leapfrog us for Dan Quinn? Yes, they will. They're going to get the hometown boy, I feel. They're going to overpay to get him. They're going to do everything in their power to make sure that he feels loved, and they're going to try to move ahead and get Russell Wilson.
Yep, absolutely. Also want to give a shout out to, I don't know what this is about, but hello, Jay. Good to see you. Base Case, thank you so much for joining us today. Got to find a new picture there. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. We'll see what happens with Dan Quinn. We'll see what happens with the game tonight. Go Niners, I guess. Go Bills. God, that's honestly, who cares? Go Bills. That's about it. That's
bang, bang. No, man. Bang, bang, Niner gang. I'm on the bandwagon. Let's do it. Yep. Yes, Josh Allen. Go Bills. We've got to do this. No more Chiefs, but Broncos country. Stay cool. Be good to each other. Gosh, you guys are giving us some more love on the way out. Our guy Klis is coming in. Great show. Thanks, guys. We appreciate you guys rocking with us, even during the playoffs. I know the schedule's a little bit crazy. The Huddle Up boys will be back tomorrow. I think Chad's going back. If not, you'll see Scott, who's been absolutely killing it with Zach. He's Nick. I'm Luke. For Scott, we appreciate it. Go Broncos.
Go Broncos.